Welcome back to the Python Essential 1 course. My name is Joseph Imlo and I'll always be your instructor for this course. If you are still not enrolled in the platform, which is Cisco Networking Academy, go ahead and do that so you get access to the Cisco curriculum. This is just a supplementary video. The main curriculum is the Cisco Networking academic course, which is the Python Essential 1 course by Cisco Networking Academy. So let's just go straight into it. So this video tutorial is about the module 2. So basically what we are going to cover in this module 2 is Python data types with the variables, operators, and basic input and output operations. So this video is going to be split into three. The first part is going to cover the Python data types and variables. Then secondly, we'll deal with operators. And thirdly, we'll look at what basic input and output operators. So we're going to write our first Python program. So if you don't have VS Code installed on your machine, if you don't have Atom, PyCharm, whatsoever it is that you're running out there as your IDE, just get something working. I'm running VS Code, so I'm just going to go ahead and bring that up. So basically, we're going to, write our first Python program. And for us to do that, we use what we call the print function, and we just print hello world on the console. So if you're not running on Python 3, you should ensure you're running on Python 3 because this tutorial is basically on Python 3. If I bring up my terminal here, let me open up my terminal so you can see the version of Python that I am currently running on my machine. I don't know why that's taking a little bit of time to come up. Alright, so I think that's up. Alright, so okay, so I just wasn't patient enough. So let me do Python 3 -- version. So as you can see here, I'm running on Python 3.12.8. So I don't know I can't remember what the latest version is right now. You can go ahead and check that up in the internet. So but I'm running Python 3.12.8. So basically in Python 2, there's no need for this parentheses when you're using the print function. So if you test that out, for example, I can just go ahead and open Python 2 because Kali has both Python 2 and 3 up and running. So if I do print, let me just say John, it's definitely going to print that out, right? But when I go to Python 3, this is going to give me a syntax error. We've talked about syntax and semantics error before in the module 1, so you should remember that. So if I go ahead and run this Python 3 and I try to print something without a parenthesis, it's going to give me error, right? You see it says that missing parenthesis. So in Python 3, whenever you print something out, you're going to use a parenthesis. As you can see, you just John, then you close your parenthesis. It's going to actually print that out. So let me just go ahead and close my terminal. So this is our first Python program. If I go ahead and run that up on my console, you're going to see the output of that, which is going to just say hello world. As you can see right here, it means hello world. So this is basically a function. The print is a function, it's a built-in function, right? So we are going to get deep into that in a minute. So let's open up our presentation. So what is a function? A function is basically a block of code that is reusable. So the most important thing about a function is the fact that it is something that is reusable, right? It is a block of code. It is meant to perform a specific task, right? The print function, it is meant to print something out on the console, right? So we have two types of functions. We have the built-in function and the user-defined function. So when we talk about the built-in function, we are talking about functions that are pre-built in Python, right? You didn't write them, they're just there for you to use. So that's why I say functions are reusable, right? So but when we talk about user-defined functions, we're talking about those functions that you define yourself. So if I just go ahead and open up my VS Code. So I'm just going to go ahead and define a function called my function. So I'm just going to name it my function, and you have your parameter here, your parentheses here. So this is just going to print something out, which we just say there's an error. This is my function. So if I go up and run this, this is not gonna work. Sorry, I need to call the function. You can't run a function without calling it. So I'm just gonna call my function and put up my parentheses there. So that's all. So I've defined the function and I've called it. So if I run this, I'm going to see an output saying this is my function. So as you can see here, highlighted, this is my function. So this is basically an example of user-defined function, and the print function is an example of built-in function. So that is that for that. So we'll just go ahead and bring up the presentation. We'll move further to components of a function. So a function can have an effect, it can have an argument, it can also have a result, right? So when we talk about effect, it means that function can cause something to happen. For example, if you have a database, for example, whereby you have a name of, let me say, a user stored, you can use a function to help update that name, right? It has caused something to happen. It has updated the database, causing something to change. So if you talk about an argument, a function can also have an argument. There's also a component of a function, it can have an argument. So, but for you to understand what an argument really is, it is always important to look at it in relation with its close counterpart, which is a parameter. So a parameter and an argument, they are related in a bit, right? They are kind of related. A parameter is a variable that acts as a placeholder, right? It's in the function, right? Whenever you define a function, you can have a parameter, right? The parameter will be the word variable. It's like a placeholder. When you say something, it's like a placeholder, like a container, right? That is going to hold something. So when you look at argument itself will be the variable, right? It's going to be the value. Sorry, the argument will be the value, while the parameter is the variable. So let me just open up. Let me open up my VS Code. Sorry, let me open up my VS Code. So let me clear this. So if you have, let me say you define a function called details, right? So if you want to have a parameter here, you can have like a name, right? Name of a person, right? It can also take age, right? Details of a person can take name and age. So from there, what do you want this to do? You can say, okay, I want this to just print out, name and age, right? That's just what I want it to do. I want it to just print out name and age, just the way it is. So if you call this function, which is details, if you call it, right, you're going to give two arguments. So you see, we have name, which is the first one. So it's a string. It's going to take Joseph. Then the second one is it's an integer. Let me say I'm 22 years old, which that's definitely not true. So this is basically what you have, right? You've defined your function here, which is details. You have two parameters here, which is name and age. Then when you are calling the function is when you put the argument. So these values are now, they are the argument. This is the placeholder, right? So let me go ahead and run that. I just made a mistake, sorry. So let me just go ahead and run this. So you see, I'm just trying as much as possible to ensure that this video doesn't consume a lot of time. So you see Joseph 22. So that is it. So this is just a parameter here, which is the placeholder. Then this is the value, which is the argument. So let's go back to our presentation. So when we talk about a result is just like kind of a calculated value. Let me put it that way, a calculated value. For example, when you are doing some mathematical operations, so that is what results are. So this is also a component of a function, right? For example, let me say you have a function that does a simple addition, so you have two values, which is num1, it's going to take two parameters, num1 and num2, right? So what do you want to do? We want this to simply return, we want it to return something, which is going to be num1. We want it to return num1 in addition with what? Num2. So we'll go into data types later so you understand better. So this is just what it's going to return. So if we go ahead and print, this addition, right? If we go ahead and print addition out, sorry, you just forgot the parentheses there. If we go ahead and print addition, then we're going to give it a value, right? What is going to be the value for addition? We said 22, right? And 10. This should give us 32, right? So this should give us 32. So let me just go ahead and run this on the console. Let me run this and see what we get. This should give us 32. So as you can see right here, we've got the value of 32. So this is how you get results. You do a little bit of mathematical operations, right? So the function basically takes into parameters, which is num1 and num2, and when we call it, we will put in two arguments, which is 22 and 10, and that's just it. So we are going into two different concepts also in functions. We talk about function definition and function invocation. So this is something you've already seen in practice. So when we define a function, you're defining a function. There's nothing special about it. It's just the way the word sounds. You define a function, right? Then when you talk about function invocation, we're talking about calling a function, right? And if I go back to the VS Code here, as you can see, def addition. So we've defined the functions addition. Then when we are calling it, when we call the word addition and we put in this argument here, this is when we are invoking the function. We are calling it. So that's just simply all about functions definition and function invocation. So function definition and invocation is basically when you are dealing with user-defined function, right? You define your function, then you call the function. So that's just basically about function invocation and functions definition. So if we go further, we'll look at some built-in arguments in Python. So we've talked about arguments already. So there's what we call positional arguments and there's what we call keyword arguments. So these are just kind of a way of determining precedence of how values are kind of handled when you are dealing with arguments. So if we go to let's just go ahead and open up our VS Code. So now we have this num1. I don't know, let me just clean this up. Let me define a new function. Same thing, let me call it details. So this is going to take two parameter. We're going to call it name, then we're going to call the second one age. So this is an integer and a string, so we'll get into the data types later for you to get a better understanding. So we just want this to print out let me see, my name is definitely my name, right? So my name is my name, so I'm gonna call name, right? Plus, so this plus is it's called concatenation. You're trying to add data together. So my name is name plus let me start another one. My age is you concatenate that. So you're going to stringify this because these are two different data types. So this is an integer and this is a string. So I'm going to turn this into a string. The age is an integer, so I'm stringifying that. So age. So let me just go ahead and call this function and put in an argument. So let me call this function and put in an argument. So I'm just going to call it, what is it? Details. It's called details. So there are two arguments that I'm going to put here. For name, I'm going to put Joseph, right? And for age, I'm going to put 18. There's no way I'm 18 years of age. Sorry. So let me just go ahead and run this. Okay, this is not what I'm trying to do. So let me go ahead and run this, but first let me clear this console. I don't like things getting all messed up. So let me go ahead and run this. Where is it? All right. So if you run this, you see that it says my name is Joseph, my age is 18. I don't know, that looks really jam-packed. Yeah, let me give a little bit of space. That should do, just give a little bit of space. I think this should be fine. Let me rerun that so you can see clearly. All right, so this says that my name is Joseph, my age is 18, right? So when we talk about positional argument, it means that it takes the order in which it is when you define a function. For example, it means that when you talk about positional argument, it means this name must be what you're putting here. Age must be the second. The way it is, you follow the same precedence. So if you want to test this out and you change the order and put your age here, which is 18, then you swap it out and say you're putting your name here, which is Joseph, you're going to have what we call, you're going to have a syntax error because this is not the order in which it is, right? So if I run this, it's going to give me a syntax error because those are two different data types. So as you can see here, definitely an error will occur. You say can only concatenate strings, not integer, because it is treating this 18 as name, right, which is not supposed to be so, right, because you've already specified that this is here you specify that name is standing in as a word, as a string, right? So age, that is a number, right, which will stringify here. You are now putting what do you call it, a string for it. That's why you're getting this error. So if you want to talk about keyword arguments, I've changed the order. All I need to do is to call the variable, right? I can say, okay, I want to change the order. I want to specify how the order should be. It doesn't matter how I put it, but you need to attach it to the variable. So I'll say name, right? Okay, this is age. Sorry, I'll say age is equal to this, right? So that's why it's called a keyword argument. Then I'll say name is equal to this. So I should get no error when I run this. I should get no error when I run this because I've already used a keyword argument. So these are how you can change the precedence of arguments when you are working with functions. So as you can see, it prints out my name is Joseph, my age is 18. So basically, this is our positional arguments and keyword argument. So let me just go ahead and bring back the presentation. Let's see what's next. So there's a sep and end keyword argument also. It's basically used when you are dealing with built-in print function. For example, when you are trying to print something on the console, when you're trying to print something on the console, you can use the sep and end argument. So by default, these two, basically the sep is like if you like say separation, right? Yeah, you're trying to separate something. So by default, it takes a space. The sep argument keyword, it's called a keyword argument. It's not just an argument, but a keyword argument. So for the end argument, by default, it takes a new line. By default, it takes a new line. So let's just go ahead and bring up VS Code. So let me go ahead and clear this out. So for you to use this keyword argument in the print function, you can go ahead and say, okay, you want to print something. Let me say, let me say my name is, right? So I say my name is, then I'm just gonna use the end, put an equal to, just by default this is what it's going to be, right? So I'm going to print something else. I'm going to print Joseph Ayimla. So this is my full name. So let me go ahead and run this so you see what I'm talking about when we talk about SEP and end. So let me run this. So you see that it says that my name is Joseph Ayemlo, right? So as you can see, sorry, I don't know, I didn't put that. Let me run that again. All right, so as you can see, my name is Joseph Ayemlo. So there's a space in there. So if you want to see what is really happening here, if you want to see what is happening here, let me remove this end argument. Keyword argument, sorry, let me remove it and run this, then you understand what we are doing here. Let me run it. You see, so you see that this takes it to a new line, right? So this takes it to a new line. So we are putting that, we are saying that, okay, at the end of this we should just have a space. We don't want a new line, right? So we are just saying that at the end of what we are printing here is just a space we need. So this is basically it. The SEP, the end argument is just used to change the order of how things are printed. So if you talk about let me just give an example again. For example, let me give a better example when we are using something that we really show. Let me say for I in range. Don't bother about what I'm trying to do right now. Just focus on the output. So we want to print like I, like that is 5, right? That's the value of it. So if we just print it, right, if we print it, you see what will happen here. Print I. So for I in range 5, you print I. So let me run this. Where is it? Let me run this. So as you can see, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? It springs from 0 to 5, right? This is like these are just numbers from 0 to 5 printed. So if you look at it this way, so what if you want something to be at the end of each of these value that has been printed, right? So for example, now this is where this end argument really comes in handy. So I can say that, okay, at the end of each value that has been printed, right, at the end of each value, I want to have a number, right? For example, I want to have number 1, number 2, number 3, and whatsoever, right? So I'm just going to specify that and say this should be number, right? So let me go ahead and print that so you see the difference. All right, so as you can see, we have 0 number, 1 number, 2 number, 3 number, 4 number. So this is just this is just basically what you can use this to do. You change the order at which things are being printed. You can just figure out the use of it to you. Whatever you want to do, just get to understand what it can do for now. So for the SEP argument, keyword argument, let's give an example for that. Let me say you have different values. Let me say you're trying to print something. You print this. Let me say John. Let me say you're printing out different name. Right. Let's use a comma and Joseph. Right. This is just like names of people, right? So John, Joseph, and let me say Samuel. So you have these 3 different kinds of names that you want to print. So I want to have something to separate the names, right? If I print them, let's see what will happen. Let's see what happens when you just print them out. So it's just gonna print these things out without even it's gonna print them out. You see, everything just look jam-packed. Trust me. Let me just go ahead and clear this. everything just look jam-packed over there. I don't know, this look as if I'm in a market or something. So let me go ahead and reprint that. You see that John, Joseph, Samuel. But what if I want to have some kind of a separation, like something to separate these? For example, let me put a comma and say, okay, sep. I want to separate. I want to separate these values, right? Because they are values. I want to separate them with, let me say, a dash, right? Sep. Let me set it equal to, let me say, John. Okay, let me just put a dash, right? Separated by dash. So whenever it's printing out all these values, it's going to add a dash to each of them. So let me print that out so you see what I'm saying. So you see John, Joseph, and Samuel. So it's just separated by dash. So this is basically how you do this. Use the sep and end argument, a keyword argument. It's called a keyword argument, not just an argument. So basically that's that for that. Let's go back to our presentation to see what's next. So introduction to strings, right? So basically, string is just a way of writing text in Python, right? We've already used it, when we did our first Python program, when we say hello world in single quotation or in double quotation or in triple quotation, right? So these are three ways you can write strings. You can define a string whenever you're printing something or defining a variable or even in a function and all of that. So these are basically the three ways you can output a string. So let me just go ahead and bring up my VS Code. Let me go ahead and bring that up. So as you can see, all these things we've been doing here, putting things in quotation, they are called strings, right? This is one type of data. We're going to get into data type soon, so you understand better what strings are. So these are basically strings. As long as something is in a quotation, either single, double, or triple, it is a string. So we'll just go ahead and open back the slide. Let's see what is next for us. There's what we call new line. It is used in strings, right? It is a backward slash itself. It's called an escape character. So you just use to the backward slash itself is the escape character. Then when you add an end to it, it becomes what? New line. So let me give you an example of what that does. For example, let me remove this separation. If I go ahead and print something like, okay, testing, it's gonna jump pack everything up for me. That is the truth. It's just gonna jump pack everything up in one line. I don't know why this print function does that. Let me copy that and paste. I'm coming. Okay. When you use the print function, this won't really. Let me say you have a line of text. Sorry, sometimes when you code too much, you begin to forget some basic things. So let me say you have this. Let me just go ahead and clean this up. This is not the best example for me to give you. When you have John, Joseph, and Samuel, what if I want to take Samuel into a new line, right? I don't want Samuel to be together with this John and Joseph. So I'm just going to use the backward slash n. This is basically how to do this. You just put a backward slash n. Why is the comma lacking? Okay. Let me do something here. All right. Let's say we say this is a test program. This is a test program. So this is a test program. So this is a test program. What if I want programs to be on a new line? So I'm just going to use the backward slash n. So it's just going to take program to a new line. It's not going to output it on the same line with the rest of the text. So if you run this, you see that you say this is a test, then the program is on a new line. So this comes in handy sometimes. I don't know whatsoever it is you want to make use of. So this tutorial is already 30 minutes long. So let's move straight into what's next. So we're going to be talking about Python literals, and when we talk about literals, we're talking about the data itself, right? So the way you kind of print out a variable is what determines what kind of the way you define a variable will determine what kind of data it is, right? What kind of literals it is. So literal simply talks about the data itself. So you can have 22. 22 can be a string, it could be a number. It all depends on how you would define it. So you need to specify the kind of literals a value is whenever you're writing it. So if you go back to before we go into that, let's check what's next. So we have basically different types of literals in Python. We have string literals, we have numerical literals, we have Boolean literals. So when we talk about string literals just talks about text, like what we've talked about already. You can't do any mathematical operations with it, right? When we talk about numerical literals, this refers to numbers, right? And you can do some mathematical operations with it. So Boolean literals just deals with true or false and denoted as 1 and 0. That's the way it is stored in computer, 1 and 0. So the computer does not understand maybe or maybe not, it only understands true or false. So let me just go ahead and bring up the VS Code. So if you define a variable, let me say name, and you said name is equal to 22, right? You've automatically said that this is an integer, this is a numerical literal, right? That's what you are saying. If you say name is equal to 33, right, again, so this basically treats this as two different things. But the reason why we are getting this error is because we are having same name. So let me say name 2. Okay, you can still set it equal. It will redefine it. It will redefine it, trust me, but we don't want that happening. So let's say name 2. So name 1 is equals to 33 and name 2. So these are two different data types. This is numbers. This is what strings, right? So if we talk about Boolean value, for example, if I say name is equal to name 2, right, this should be false because these two values are not the same, right? So if I say print, I want it to print name is equal, it's going to print out false. That is what is going to happen because these two are two different data types. So let me print that out. So as you can see, I'm going to get false. So this is false because these are two different things, right? But if I change this to same data type, it's going to get me true because 33 is really equal to 33. So basically what we've done here is, you see, this is true. So this is how you specify what kind of literals when you define a variable. If you put a quotation in that means you're saying that this is single quotation, triple or double quotation. It shows that it is a string. Then when you don't put anything, it shows that it is what a numeric literals. So let's go back to our presentation. So we have different types of numeric literals. We have integers, we have floating points, and we have complex. So when we talk about integers, we're talking about whole numbers, right? And their type is int. So when we talk about floating points, we're talking about numericals with decimals like 2.0, 3.0, 4.80 and all of that. So when we talk about complex numbers, if you did mathematics, you remember when we talk about complex numbers, numbers that have real and imaginary numbers like 4 plus 3j and all of that. So we'll just go straight into we'll go straight into it, and let me open up my VS Code. So you see an example of all this type of numeric literals. So when we say let me say num1 is equal to 22, right? This is basically an integer, right? When we say num2 is equal to, let me say 20.0, right? This is a float. So this is basically a float, right? We've already specified. But you can specify yourself, right? You can specify yourself what kind of value it is, and this is done based on the value you're giving to your variable, right? So if you check, for example, let me say you go ahead and print this out. Let me go ahead and print this out. It's going to print it out in terms of okay, sorry, I didn't add a print function to it. So if you print this out, I'm getting a little bit exhausted. This is 36 minutes up and running on this. It's really not easy. So when you print num2, okay, I don't know what I'm doing out here right now, sorry. Alright, so we've defined the variable. All we just want to do is print it out. All we want to do is just print it out. So print num1, right? Let me just go ahead and copy and paste that. Ctrl C, Ctrl V. So I'm going to print num2. Alright, so this, I just want you to see something. So you see 22 and 20.0. So these are two different data types. The first one is an integer. The second one is what a float. So these are just basically if you talk about, let me say, complex number, for example, you can say let me say num3, we set it equal to 2 plus, let me say, 3j, right? So you can also print num3, right, to show that this is also another numeric literals. If you want to prove this to be true, I'm going to do a mathematical operation with this. Let me say 2 3 3, this should give us 4 6. So let me say print num, this should be 4. Okay, so print num3 plus num4, right? So it's just going to add these two together. I'm going to print it. So let me run this. Okay, so as you can see, this will become 4 and 6, as I've said. So it adds this together. So you can have complex literals, you can have floats, you can have integers. So these are basically types of numeric literals. So this is all for this video. It's 40 minutes long, and it's just basics. I don't know why this video is so long. So next we're going to be looking at operators in Python, but that will be in the next video tutorials. Thank you for watching, and do well to subscribe and like, and share this video. Thank you.